Floyd! Floyd! I'll knock you out! He's sick, look at him.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. I'm sure most of you have heard by now Jake Paul's most valuable promotions signs women's undisputed champion, Alycia Baumgardner. The news broke earlier today, and I saw a good number of people reacting to it, which is a good sign that many people are paying attention. Reigning undisputed women's super featherweight champion Alycia Baumgardner has signed a deal with Jake Paul's most valuable promotions, the two parties told ESPN. The signing of Baumgardner, 15-1 with 7 knockouts, further proves that Paul's promotional company continues to have a heavy interest in the growth and development of women's boxing. MVP recently signed Alycia Baumgardner to a lifetime deal that will see the 7-division world champion become chairwoman of MVP's women's boxing initiatives once she decides to retire from competition. I've always believed in betting on myself, and signing with MVP is the next big move in that journey, said Baumgardner, 30, in a statement to ESPN. MVP has proven they're the leaders in women's boxing, creating the biggest opportunities for fighters like me to shine. This partnership is a natural fit, not just for my career, but for the impact we're making on the sport. The future just got even bigger. After turning pro in 2017, Baumgardner exploded onto the scene when she knocked out Terry Harper for the WBC Women's Junior Lightweight title in November of 2021. She became undisputed by adding world titles with wins over Edith Matisse, Michaela Mayer, and Elham Mekhaled. MVP is strategically building a roster of fighters who deliver the W both inside and outside the ring. And we are thrilled to welcome Alycia to the family as our newest women's world champion, said Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian, co-founders of Most Valuable Promotions, in a statement to ESPN. Alycia is one of the premier athletes in combat sports, and signing her is a meaningful accomplishment for our promotion, as we now have exclusive relationships with 2 of the top 5 boxers in the world. We look forward to Alycia's MVP debut and are actively evaluating the right timing and event for her return to the ring, with Katie Taylor and Alycia Baumgardner headlining an all-women's boxing event at the Madison Square Garden July 11th. It would seem to be an opportune time for ESPN's number 9 pound-for-pound boxer to make her promotional debut. MVP did not confirm or deny with ESPN that Baumgardner would be featured on that show. Alycia last saw action in September of last year, the Delphine Persoon fight. Now they are charting a course towards her next one, her MVP debut. What do I think about this news? Well, I already knew it was coming. I just had to keep a lid on it. I already knew it was going to happen, and I may have hinted at it here and there, but I was instructed not to give it away. Now, reacting to it, it's a good signing for MVP, and in many ways, it's a good move for Alycia. She could have re-signed to Matchroom, but if she did, I don't think it would have made this many waves. It may have seemed rather ho-hum to some if she stayed the course with Matchroom. Going to MVP shakes things up and exposes her to a different audience than your conventional boxing audience. Added exposure. The boxing audience is already more or less familiar with Alycia. Now it's time to familiarize the audience that isn't. The casuals and the youngins, the kids who follow Jake Paul, who is not to be underestimated. Jake, Nikisa, Amanda, they've got a plan. They've got a winning strategy. This isn't the only new signing they've made, by the way. There's more incoming. You can't underestimate them. Look at the last event that they put on, the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight with Taylor versus Serrano 2 on the undercard, and how many people were able to see that via their partnership with Netflix. That's an ace in the hole. That they're working with Netflix, which is a huge, huge platform. It's a big part of the appeal of Alycia going over there, getting to box on an even bigger platform than the one she's been boxing on DAZN. Netflix is bigger. It's a look also. MVP is a good fit for Alycia, and Alycia is a good fit for MVP. It's an indefinable quality, a look, streamlined, fresh, and new. Sexy. When you think about it, it just works. Now the question is, if she is at MVP now, who is she gonna fight? It would seem that she's pretty much cleaned up the super featherweight division. The lightweight division is fragmented between matchroom fighters and boxer fighters. Will she have access to any of them? What may have seemed like a potential hindrance at first, when you think about it, is no hindrance at all. I don't think Matchroom is going to play sides of the street with their girls if an opportunity comes for them. They didn't do that with Alycia. They let her go to Boxer, to box Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan. They let her go to ESPN. Same deal. Katie Taylor. They let her go to Netflix. They didn't stop those fighters from crossing the street for an opportunity. So, if MVP wants to make a fight between Alycia and some girl at Matchroom, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I don't think Matchroom's going to get in the way. If the question is, who is Alycia going to fight now that she's with MVP? Whoever's around and whoever's worth fighting. And if that somebody is a Matchroom fighter, I don't think Matchroom's going to be a problem. Now, Boxer's a different story. They're very protective of their fighters. But in a word, I think Alycia is going to be all right because Most Valuable Promotions pays their fighters well and their opponents. She's a good fit for them, and they're a good fit for her. Now it's just a matter of scheduling her next fight and landing her an opponent because she only boxed once last year, and that was in September. The Delphine Persoon fight that was ruled a no contest due to a clash of heads that resulted in a cut over Delphine's right eye. I remember hearing something about a rematch, but I ain't heard nothing new since. If it ends up being Delphine again, or someone else, we'll see. And now that Matchroom doesn't have Alycia Baumgardner to promote, are they going to replace her? Who are they going to replace her with? I think Shernika Johnson, if she wins this weekend, would be a good signing. We'll see.
I want to talk today about what happened in boxing last 2 weeks. The last week we announced the first league of boxing with TKO and Dana White to give the opportunity to the fighters to make something the fans like. We have a lot of ideas. This league is not against anyone, not against the commission, not against the promoters. This is my opinion and this is from my side. It is a project, will have space in the market. We will still see the forebuilt and the commission and the promoters. The market is huge and no one can delete anyone from this market.
That is the official word from His Excellency himself and confirmation of what I already thought and what I told you here in several videos on the channel, that we're coming up with these doomsday scenarios as a result of the announcement of TKO. That's not what TKO is, and that's not what it's intended to be. All the stuff you heard Lou DiBella saying on Ariel Helwani's podcast and what other podcasters chimed in on the subject with their own doomsday scenarios. Gross misrepresentation of what this is. For Turkey, it is just another project. Just another project and just another guy within the sport that he's working with. Because from the moment he endeavored into the world of boxing, he made it his mission to work with everybody. With Matchroom, with Queensbury, with PBC, with Top Rank, with Golden Boy, to bridge the gap in order to make fights happen. Thus, working with Dana on a boxing project is more of the same. He's working with everyone. Now, what it wasn't about was running people out of town or running people out of business like so many would-be Nostradamuses forecasted. Those doomsday scenarios had more to do with those individuals' own ulterior motives than anything to do with Turkey or TKO. Ha! I told you about that Turkey guy. It was just a bunch of idiots looking for a gotcha moment.
I want to break the sport down and build it from the ground up.
There's a lot of rumors. Turkey said the other day that could potentially be the first one.
What?
Crawford versus Canelo.
Well, listen, my model is way different. Turkey has things that he's obligated to over the next 18 months. I want to break the sport down and build it from the ground up like we did the UFC. So I'm on a different path.
What's something that would surprise the boxing fans with this new deal? You're coming in hot. Turkey says he wants to crush the competition. How do you approach this? Are you going to be working with those guys, the other promoters, Oscar De La Hoya's, Eddie Hearns?
I don't know. I don't know how that's all going to play out.
What Dana White wants is the opportunity to do his own thing in his own lane and apply his own philosophy to this TKO boxing league. And we'll see how that pans out. There are some difficulties, some challenges, but there always are when you're starting something new. With all of these bold presuppositions, we've seen grossly overestimated the carbon footprint of TKO in a manner of speaking, that when you're starting out, you got to get the basics down first, and that applies to everything. Not dissimilar from when you start going to the gym. You start going to the gym, you want to put some muscle on. You don't use every goddamn machine in the building or do every single exercise you come across on the internet. You start out small, and ideally, you start out with the basics. So, what are the basics for Dana in this endeavor? First, he's got to get a stable of fighters. He's got to start putting on fights with those fighters, and hopefully good ones.
Advertise the brand. Familiarize an audience with it.
There were so many people misreading this situation that TKO was going to devour everybody else based on who its financiers are. Turki and Dana and Nick Khan. And I understand that these are powerful people, so that when you see a proliferation of them all working on one project, it's gonna get your attention.
You guys have got some overactive imaginations, and oddly enough, you didn't think all of this through.
While cooking up doomsday prophecies in your head, without the familiarity of a Matchroom or a Queensbury or a Top Rank, running everybody else out of business without the bodies would prove near impossible. Not that that's what they're trying to do anyway, because it isn't. That was just your misinterpretation. This is a fledgling brand, and for a new brand to really get started and get somewhere, you gotta start off with the basics. You get your stable of fighters, you start doing fights, you start doing shows,
hopefully good ones. You get the wheels in motion for this thing, iron out the kinks, and get through the growing pains.
And even at this very early stage, I can see some challenges ahead already. They haven't even done their first show yet, but you have to wonder, for what fighters are fighting within this league? What are they going to be making compared to what the boxers outside of this league are making? Because depending on what that number is, you may have fighters that don't want to sign to TKO because they feel they can make more money outside of it. Or maybe you have fighters that did sign at the beginning, but eventually want to leave because they want to make the kind of money that a Shakur Stevenson is making, or a Ryan Garcia. What fighters exist outside of that bubble?
That sphere of operations.
It's becoming more apparent that this TKO Boxing League will operate parallel to the rest of the world of boxing, though not necessarily a part of it.
It's apart from it. The fighters in this league are not fighting for the same belts as everybody else. They may not be fighting for the same money.
And that could be a problem down the line.
The Ring magazine and the belt of the Ring magazine is in the middle. The legacy of 103 years, it will not be involved in any of these things. This is something separate. The Ring magazine will start to have amazing and different cards. It will begin in London, in Tottenham Stadium, Yuba and Camden.
One thing you want to remember in the midst of all of this is that irrespective of what Turki might have going on with a Dana White or an Eddie Hearn or someone else, Ring Magazine is now his baby. He owns that. Irrespective of what arrangements may come to an end within the next 18 months, that is Turki's stake in it. He owns Ring Magazine, and you don't want to lose sight of that.
Now let's get back to the boxing. I see what happened in the market in the last week, and I understand the panic in the market because there is a lot of companies and there are a lot of promoters. What I want to say, we care about the fans and the fighters, and we will support the fans and the fighters, and we will continue doing the big fights. There is a full schedule. The relationship between Riyadh season and the relationship between the Ring Magazine and the promoters will continue at least for the next 1 or 2 years. This depends about their reaction and about what is the options they will give us. If it is good for us, we will do it.
My interpretation of that is the existing relationships may be able to continue within the next 18 months and perhaps beyond, so long as these respective promoters that have been working with Turki continue to make their fighters available to him to use on his shows, be they Ring Magazine shows or Riyadh season shows.
At this point, I think that some promoters are more willing to do this than others.
In this situation, I like what Matchroom and Eddie Hearn doing Eddie, still until now, discussing with my team and with me to doing a big fights around the world. And Eddie, to continue to work with us if we are continuing doing business with him. And this is the professional way. And also we have a lot of discussion with Golden Boy to have some fighters from them in different cards.
I imagine that he's talking about William Zepeda and a potential Shakur Stevenson fight. I imagine that he's talking about Zerto Ramirez for a potential Jai Opataya fight. And of course, he's got to be talking about Ryan Garcia beyond the Rolly Romero fight when he brings up what fighters he wants to use from the Golden Boy Promotions' roster. And don't forget about Virgil Ortiz. I'm pretty sure he wants to bring him back.
The result of Times Square, it will affect the future of the Riyadh season cards. We want to see in October the rematch between Garcia and Haney. We want Timalifu maybe against Boots or someone else in the same level. After the 3rd of May, we will announce the details about the Canelo and Crawford fight, the big fight in the history of boxing. We will not announce it before the 3rd, all the details, and there is surprise about who will be the promoter of these big fights. And the platform, you will see the big fights in it. We finish everything, but I respect the request from Canelo. He wants to focus in his big fight and dangerous fight in the 3rd of May. And after that, we will start to talk about the future. We are studying, and we will have anyone from Japan in December in our country. There is a lot of options. I prefer him to fight Nakatana from Japan if it is possible. We will push to have something like this in the future. Now, maybe today or tomorrow maximum, we will announce the undercard of Canelo in the 3rd of May. There is a lot of surprise. We will announce it also for Tottenham and for Times Square, and my team is always happy to work with the promoters in boxing if they give us good options.
I do think some promoters have their own plans with their own stable of fighters and thus may exercise some discretion in outsourcing them moving forward. Top Rank almost immediately comes to mind. What happened to Jared Anderson at the hands of Martin Bacoli?
Pretty sure that left a bad taste in their mouths. And what about Frank Warren?
It's not that Frank has had a bad experience at Riyadh, because he hasn't, but his stable of fighters right now is so robust that he may have his own plans for those fighters. Within the UK boxing scene, he may not want to outsource them.
I mean, he's got the heavyweights.
To where he can do all his own shows, and all of them could be very lucrative. The bottom line is that what movements we've been seeing are hardly the doomsday scenarios some people made it out to be.
Podcasters and their penchant for clickbait and sensationalism.
People within the industry that may have ulterior motives, their axes to grind, that's where their evaluations came from. Not anything pertaining to Turkey or TKO.
Like I always say, the reality of things is often more mundane.